Are there any questions? Yes.
I have a why question, which are often annoying.
A why question.
Yes.
Right.
Why do we sometimes meditate facing the center of the room and sometimes facing the wall?
Why not? So the question was, in case you didn't hear it, why do we sometimes meditate facing the center of the room and sometimes facing the wall? So why not? Okay. So traditionally, in our tradition, in the Korean tradition, you face in on retreats, except for the very long retreats, the kyolche, the very long retreats, then you face the wall. And then when you're not on retreat, you face the wall. Because facing the wall is more private, and facing inward, you are giving and getting energy from everyone. So it's different styles. In Soto Zen, you always face the wall. In Rinzai Zen, you always face in. So we do both. Okay? So, yeah. All right. Is there anything else? Any other questions you want? Yes?
Why do we always meditate with our eyes open?
Why do we always meditate with our eyes open? That is a very important and wonderful question. So first of all, our eyes are not open facing, boing. I used to do that. That's what I used to do. And when you do that, it's like your energy just leaves you. So also when you close your eyes, then it becomes very inward, and it's difficult to let the universe in. So there are many, many meditation practices where you have your eyes closed. And when you do that, it's like you're shutting out the world. You're just completely looking inward. But what we do, and this is what just every Buddhist form I know does, is we have our eyes open and they're like about a 45-degree angle to the ground. I used to say that you're looking at the spot on the floor where if you were to fall down, your head would hit, but I sit in a chair now, so that doesn't work. But your eyes are about 45 degrees to the ground, and you're not like looking at anything. Like there's some forms of meditation where you sort of stare at an object, like, my form of meditation might be staring at this water bottle, right? So ours is not like that. It's sometimes called a soft gaze. So your brain is not focused on where your eyes are. Your brain is not focused on what your ears hear. It's not focused on what your skin feels, etc., what your nose smells, etc. But instead, you just naturally let all of that in without trying to distort it, without, sort of narrowing your mental focus. You just let it come in. So a dog barking in the street, no problem. I remember once sitting a retreat in Providence Zen Center before it moved out, when it was it was really in central Providence instead of being in suburban, semi-rural Cumberland. And there were these two women screaming at each other in the street in Italian, because it was an Italian neighborhood. And we're sitting there and they're just screaming in Italian, right? And then another time I was sitting at a retreat, not in our school, at Bodhi Manda in New Mexico, which was in this sort of resort town. And they were having a kind of community fair next door. And all of a sudden there was this rock concert of oldies, and you're sitting there and they're going, Gloria Cielo, doesn't matter. The light's on, the light's off, sun's shining, it's raining, doesn't matter. You just sit there and it just comes in. So that's why we sit not just with our eyes open, but not staring ahead, not staring at all, just lowered with this soft gaze. Okay? Thank you. Liz, you had a question.
Yes. So something was this morning at the online Sangha Global Coffee Hour, where you just got together and we just chatted and everything, which was very nice. But somebody mentioned about I will twist up the name, the founder, Zen Master Susang,
Sung-san,
Sung Song,
yeah.
Song. Okay. And that he said you need more suffering. And I'm not
Mhm.
sure what the context of that is. And I was just wondering if, because, you know, you can, I mean, they just emptied the Syrian prison, you know, you don't really need more suffering there. I mean, it's so that, and I'm sure that's not what he was talking about, but
Yeah, so what he was talking about was he was talking about when people are lazy about their practice.
hmm,
So when people don't see the importance of practice, or when they're practicing, sort of like a feel-good kind of thing, a self-improvement kind of thing, when they're practicing on their own terms. Well, I like this kind of practice. I don't like that kind of practice. So, I don't want to bow, chanting, no, so much. I only like to sit, this kind of thing, or I only like to bow, or whatever it is. So that kind of mind. So what caused Buddha to wake up? Which, as Rebecca Achita Popsonim said in her wonderful Dharma talk at our ceremony, and we will get it up on YouTube, I just have to figure out how to do it. She said, that was actually his first awakening, was, whoa, there's something going on here. There's this thing called suffering. There's this thing called sickness. There's this thing called old age. There's this thing called death. And I have to get to the bottom of this. And then he had this this bodhicitta, this desire for awakening, that in itself is an awakening. So yeah, if you feel really comfortable in your life and you are not awake to the fact that you're no separate from the people who are suffering all over the world, if you just have this kind of smug sense of comfort, then yeah, you need more suffering. You may not need more suffering in your particular life, but you certainly need to be aware of the suffering. It shouldn't be this abstract thing that you think has nothing to do with you, which many people in America, we were raised to think that it has nothing to do with us. Not going to happen to us. So that's what he meant. So more suffering is necessary. He meant you have to you have to perceive the human condition. You have to perceive the human condition clearly. And the condition of the planet, and the condition of the animals and the plants, and the rocks and the water, the condition of everything. You have to perceive this. And then you will have bodhicitta. Then you will want to wake up. And in itself, that already is an awakening, to perceive this suffering, to not have this smug, oh, I'm okay, I don't care, I'm okay. If you can really perceive this suffering and that you are not separate from it, that's already an awakening. So that's what he was talking about. Yeah. So thank you for your question. Yeah, a lot of people think that Buddhism is this negative religion because we talk about suffering all the time, but that's where joy comes from. If you deny it, then you can't ever truly feel joy because it's always sitting there in the back of your mind. Uh-oh, I'm going to die. I'm going to pretend I'm not. I'm happy, But if you can really take it in, take the whole thing in, as we say in Yiddish, the whole Megillah, you take the whole thing in, and then you can really feel joy. So, thank you. That was a little Dharma candy. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When I miss Saturdays too much, I kind of get disconnected from the common practice.
So when you miss Saturday practice, which is when we do kong-ans practice too much, you get disconnected from kong-ans practice.
Yeah, and you've told me what to do, like with the Four Great Vows, the prostrations.
And I gave you a home practice, yeah.
Yeah, but how do I get more out of the kong-ans?
How do you get more out of the kong-ans practice? You don't get anything out of anything. Have you noticed that? You just give stuff up.
Okay.
This is a practice of giving stuff up. So the way to do kong-ans practice is to do kong-ans practice. Now, When you're not able to, and you know, when you say, you know, I get out of touch of conversation, well, if I don't play piano for a while, I get out of touch of playing piano too. It's like anything. You don't do something for a while and then you don't know what it is. But when you're working on a kong-an, even if you don't come to the Zen Center, when you're practicing or when you're washing dishes or whatever you're doing, then if it naturally arises, you look at it and you just look at it. You don't analyze, oh, what does this mean? What did Yunnan really mean when he said, you know, sesame rolls and tea, you know? Right? Does that translate into Coca-Cola and hamburgers? You know, you don't do that. You just look at it and then put it down again. And just let that happen. So for decades, see, this Kansas Zen Center in some form or another started in the fall of 1978 when Stan and I got married and Zen Master Sung-san came and did our wedding because he thought it was close to Chicago. He said, how close Chicago? I said, oh, an hour and a half, you know, meaning by plane. He thought I meant by car. But he was a good sport. And, you know, for a long time, we had, any teachers we had came in, it was like for, what, like at least 10, closer to 15 years. Anytime somebody, you know, we had a retreat, a teacher had to fly in. We did not have kong-an practice every week. You know, maybe 3-4 times a year is all that we were able to do. And, you know, that was okay. What's important is your direction and your practice. And as I said, you know, let it just rise up. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't overanalyze. That's the worst thing people do is they overanalyze. Don't do that. Just look at it, put it down again. Okay? Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, let's do announcements.